Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brett Levi, and I am the program manager for the Office of Research Development here at Clemson. Thank you so much for joining us for what is the first in our 2022-2023 academic year workshop series. We have been planning these workshops since the summer, and we are excited to have them kick off today with limited submissions and our initiatives. So I will go ahead and share my screen. We're going to be looking at limited submissions and our initiatives. And this is kind of my specialty, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we move on. So this series, especially today, is to begin your journey to specialized research funding opportunities at Clemson. Because while there are many broad calls from sponsors and agencies, from NSF to private foundations, these are specific research fundings which are administered from the university level here at Clemson. So we'll go ahead and get started. Our agenda today, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview about the Office of Research Development, and then we will move to limited submissions and give a brief overview about that. After that, we will go into InfoReady for just a minute. I want to show the system in which we administer limited submissions to you so that you might become a little bit more familiar with it. It makes everybody's lives easier, and it's a great system to administer limited submission competitions. From there, we will move to our initiatives. These R initiatives are research funding opportunities administered by the Vice President for Research Office, and ORD is the one who facilitates this. And I know many of you are anxious to hear about the 2022-2023 solicitations, which have just been released, and you will hear a little bit more about that in this presentation. And then at the end, I'll give you just an overview of your college support centers. So with that, we will move on. So just to give you a little bit of an overview about what research development is at Clemson, we, of course, are the Office of Research Development, and our job is to support you as faculty members in your efforts to obtain extramural funding through world-class research, creating new groundbreaking knowledge that contributes to the betterment of society and improves the human condition. So you're already tasked with an extraordinary duty in your job as faculty members, and our job is to make that that great task that you've taken upon you a little bit easier in our support of you. So we strategically focus on funding opportunities that will allow Clemson and the community in which we're a part of here to make the greatest contributions to benefit our region, nation, and society at large. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to my team members. They're all on this call. I won't, there we go. Our Associate Vice President for Research, who also heads up the Office of Research Development, is Sheila Cotton. Our team leader is Jane Jacoby. And a new faculty, two new faculty, actually, I'm one of, or not faculty, excuse me, staff. Two new staff who have just joined us are my friend, Morgan Simpson, Dr. Morgan Simpson, and then myself. I started back in June in this position. So we have a fantastic team. We're blessed with a great office and friendships and working relationships, and that helps us work for the betterment of you. So to give you a little bit of information about the Office of Research Development and some of the roles and responsibilities that we do, some of the three main pillars we do are faculty support, institutional advancement, and exploring new opportunities. You can see from these, there is a plethora of information available to you through our office. In our faculty support, we have early career academies, proposal development, support training, and then workshops like the one that you're a part of now and that you have seen advertised in our 2022-2023 workshop series. As part of our institutional advancement, we seek to build interdisciplinary teams for large grant proposals, such as NSF Engineering Research Centers, the NSF Materials Research Science and Engineering Centers, DOE calls, NIH calls. So we work to build those cross-collaboration communities to begin building towards submitting one of these larger grants. And then we also explore new opportunities for research funding. And that is in a variety of ways, from monitoring agency programs to private foundations, limited submissions, which is an area which is near and dear to my heart, and Young Investigator Awards. A few ORD resources, just to make you aware of course, is our workshop series. And then there's an archive on the research development website that has past recordings of workshops. And this is available for you to go in and learn from past workshops that we've had a variety of people from in and outside of Clemson come and do. Proposal development and editing. These are services when you're working towards a bigger award that our wonderful staff, especially Morgan and Jane, work on with our faculty here at Clemson. Early career academies, like I referenced before. The R initiative funding opportunities, which we'll talk a little bit about today. And then coming soon, a proposal repository. And all of this information is available here on this website that you see on your screen, clemson.edu/research/development. And then before we head off to our limited submissions and our initiatives roadshow, I just wanted to give you a little bit of personal information about myself. Since I'm new, I graduated Clemson in 2020. And I originally came on board as a grants coordinator in the Office of Office of Sponsored Programs. I still get the names of the offices confused. And the two areas I manage in my position here now are limited submissions and our initiatives. And with that, we will get on the road. So first stop is limited submissions. What is a limited submission? A limited submission is exactly what the name implies, a funding program where the sponsor enacts limits on the number of submissions allowed by an institution. So we have many, a whole host of sponsors who our Office of Sponsored Programs works with in submitting proposals for faculty, from NIH and NSF, those large federal agencies, to private foundations on the local level. So when those sponsors enact limits, there's language in the proposal document, in the the solicitations, that say there's, for example, a sponsor limit of 2 institutional endorsed submissions. So how do we manage these limited submissions? We manage them through the system I referenced earlier called InfoReady, and we will talk a little bit about that at the end of this slide. Where can I find limited submission opportunities? There are a couple of resources in which you could use for this. The first being the InfoReady homepage, which I will take you to at the end of this slide, and also our limited submissions digest. Each week at 1 o'clock, we send out through the Office of Research Development email a limited submission digest, which details new and upcoming limited submissions. And I am responsible for compiling these. And this leads to our next question. What happens if I find a limited submission opportunity that is not listed on the digest? So my job and what I do with limited submissions is monitor multiple agencies, multiple institutions to find the most recently released solicitations for limited submissions. But unfortunately, I don't have superpowers and know everything that's coming down the turnpike. So if there's an opportunity that you don't see listed and that you've seen, please share that with me. My email address is right there, blevi@clemson.edu, and I will get that listed as appropriately as the date is upcoming and administer that internal LOI. How do you know if you're eligible for a limited submission? So it depends. One of my professors in college, his favorite answer always was, it depends. It really depends on what agency you're dealing with and the language and the solicitation regarding eligibility. It's pretty specific for each competition, and we work with you to make sure that you're eligible and that Clemson as an institution is eligible to submit to the program. So how do you apply for a limited submission? I'm glad you asked. I'm going to share my screen with you now. This is our Clemson Info Ready page, where all of our limited submissions are administered. And this is just what the homepage looks like. And it gives you a little bit of information about the terminology used. You heard me use the word LOI just recently. This is the first step for most limited submission competitions, and it's just us asking you to submit some basic information so that we know that you're interested in the competition. So an example of this, I'm going to scroll down. If we click into here, the Camille Dreyfus Teacher Scholar Award. This is due today. So that date's coming up quickly. This is what it looks like if you're interested in the overview. It gives you details from the solicitation about when the awards are due, the number of awards Clemson is allowed to submit, the total funding, and then it gives you instructions on the LOI. So if you are interested in submitting the LOI, gives you the requirements. So here we just ask for some basic administrative contact information, a descriptive title, an abstract of up to 100 words about the project and why you are interested in submitting it, an anticipated budget number. That's not a detailed budget. It's just an anticipated budget figure in the preliminary step, and then any keywords that you'd like us to know about. So this letter of intent helps us gauge who across the Clemson campus is interested in competitions. If we have more than the allotted number, this will go to what we call internal competition, as detailed right here. If that number exceeds 1 in this instance, then it will go to internal competition, and we will administer a more detailed competition where we request something in line with a pre-proposal, internal pre-proposal. So it's a longer application. It depends on what competition it is. That's what will comprise that proposal package. But this helps reviewers then select who's going to be the best applicant to represent Clemson in the full submission. Once you've submitted that, it will go to reviewers who will review and approve or decline the applications, and then it will be awarded on the university level for the submission spot. And this is also just a little bit for your information on down. We just give you a brief overview of the program description, and it's based on the language of the solicitation. And we also give you a little bit of information about the review criteria. The most important thing I can tell you in my role is that while we can give you this information, the best thing that you can do as when you're interested in a funding opportunity is to read the solicitation provided by the sponsor. There is tons of information that they want you to know about what's going to be included. So when you read that description in the beginning, you're going to get a better, when you read the solicitation in the beginning, you're going to get a better understanding going into this process, the LOI process, about what the sponsor is expecting, and therefore that will help you craft what you put into your applications. So all of that information that we just went over is available at clemson.infoready4.com, this website right here. And that competition I just showed you is, this is what you'll see when you pull that screen up, and it gives you a full list of competitions. If it's limited submissions open, that means that it's open for competition and application. Letter of intent means we're accepting letter of intent right now. Let me revise what I said about open. Open means that the submission slot has not been filled yet. So we do not have a selected applicant, whether the competition period passed and nobody applied, or it's still open and we're accepting limited letters of intent. So this is what that looks like. It's a great, it's the hub of all limited submission activity here at Clemson. So I would definitely encourage you to take some time to look around that website. And then also, you heard me reference earlier our MailChimp emails. MailChimp is the name of the system we use to administer the emails, mass emails. So these emails are sent every week at 1 o'clock on Mondays. And what they do is just give you a full overview of what's new, up and coming in the limited submission world at Clemson. So this is the most recent digest. I'm sure many of you got yesterday. At the top, it details new limited submission opportunities. You'll see some are rush LOIs. That just means that the sponsor has released it in a very short turnaround time. So we have to administer that competition quicker. So it's a scale back. It's a more detailed LOI in one sense, but at the same time, it's a rushed opportunity so that we can get through these applications that have been submitted and have our reviewers make the selection to move forward quickly. And then we also have regular LOIs, which I talked about in InfoReady. And then we also have upcoming deadlines. So once a submission opportunity has been presented in the new opportunities, it will move down here. And this is your reminder each week of what's coming down the due date road. So make sure you keep up with this. And then these are linked. So once you click on them, it will take you to the information on InfoReady on Clemson's website. Next on our road trip of research funding opportunities are our initiatives. I know many of you are anxious about these. Our initiative funding opportunities were created by the Office of the Vice President for Research as programs to nurture scholarship and discovery at Clemson University by providing funding opportunities and professional development support while recognizing excellence through awards programs. So as part of the overall our initiatives, the funding opportunities are what many of us think of, but they're not all that encompasses that. Clemson has made great strides in research in recent years, and that's culminated in a very distinct marking as a Carnegie R1 doctoral university, which is the highest research activity performed by a public university. And it's through these funding opportunities that we are continuing to progress our research here at Clemson. The Division of Research is making available additional funding opportunities to build our research reputation and support you, our faculty. Over the past 5 years, you can see the impressive numbers of research projects that have been funded and numbers of faculty members associated with that. And these our initiatives have been part of helping that process. These investments have been distributed to every college across the university. Faculty have used funds to author books and papers, conduct art exhibits, hire research faculty, purchase equipment, form interdisciplinary research teams, and have additional external funding opportunities secured and more. So you can reference our initiative website which is on the Division of Research under our initiatives. And with that, we will move on to our funding programs. So there are 6 funding programs that encompass the R funding opportunities. I listed these not in order of deadline date. You'll see that in the coming slides when they're listed in that order. The first program I'll outline here is CU Fellows. And this slide is just kind of an overview of what each program does. So CU Fellows funds the hiring and training of new research faculty and postdoctoral researchers. The CU MRI Major Research Instrumentation Award is funding for the purchase or replacement of major research equipment or an upgrade of major research equipment. CU Succeeds is a 4-tier program funding opportunity presented by the our initiative fund. And through this, it encourages and positions interdisciplinary research teams to successfully compete for significant external funding. And you can see that is defined there by $1.5 million or more. The CUCIA provides access to Clemson's core research facilities at no cost to help Clemson University faculty build research data that will supplement a new grant proposal. So this is not a monetary grant. This is a grant that a program that will grant you access to Clemson's facilities, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that specific slide. And then two opportunities, that are on a rolling deadline, which means we are actively accepting applications for them throughout the year. There's no set deadline. Is the CU sponsored travel grant, which is funding to visit program officers and establish relationships with them. And then also the external review initiative, where Clemson faculty may receive external reviews of grant proposals on which they are principal investigators. Before we go too much deeper into the nature of all of these programs, I wanted to talk a little bit about eligibility. I've gotten a lot of questions about this. So here is our outline concerning eligibility for our initiative funding opportunities. If you are a past recipient of an R initiative fund and you did not comply with the terms of funding, you are ineligible. Generally, we follow Clemson's PI policy on who is eligible. So that's defined here as tenured or tenure track faculty. Emeritus, adjunct, and visiting faculty, as well as postdocs and staff, are not eligible to lead these projects, but may be included on the research team. So with that, we will move on to our first in-depth discussion about these funding opportunities. The CUMRI Award. What is CUMRI? The Clemson Major Research Instrumentation Initiative, CUMRI, provides financial support from the Division of Research to Clemson University researchers for the purchase, replacement, or the upgrade of major research equipment that impacts scholarship, research productivity, and award of extramural funding. Major research equipment is defined here for the purposes of this initiative as a unit having a useful life of at least 5 years and an acquisition cost of more than $50,000. So you can see the due date for this. This is our first due date for the 2022-2023 R initiative funding opportunities is Wednesday, October 26th at 4:30 p.m. How much is funding? You have to at least request $50,000 in this budget. And then when does the funding period begin? It begins on or after December 1st, 2022 for a period of 6 months.
Hey, Brett, let me interject for just a moment. So one of the things that we really consider when individuals apply for the MRI funding is that this equipment can benefit multiple people. So within a department, within a college, across colleges, across the university. So when you submit an application for this particular funding opportunity, you really need to do your due diligence and seek out who else could potentially benefit and actually have them listed as part of the application. Because I can tell you the VPR the more people that will benefit, the more likely he is to fund this particular, submission.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sheila, for that piece of information, sharing it with us. Next program I'll talk about is CU Fellows. The Clemson Research Fellows initiative assists faculty, academic departments, colleges, centers, and institutes in the hiring and training of qualified new research faculty and postdoctoral researchers. Researchers may be hired to promote collaborative and creative interdisciplinary activities, research, and demonstration projects with the goal of pursuing a large funding opportunity and/or building a major research program or research center. Funds can only be requested and cost shared for the salary and fringe of the proposed researcher. So that's very important to note. If you request any other funding in that budget, it will be returned to you with the request that you adapt it to only include these costs, or it will be rejected if if ineligible funds continue to be included. The award period for the CU Fellows Initiative is up to 2 years, and at the end of this award period, the position is expected to become fully supported by externally funded grants and/or the departments or colleges. So this due date is Friday, November 11th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. And I'm going to stress this date especially because it's a Friday. I know, we all get to the end of the week and we get tired, but it's very important that you route this, and I'll speak to this at the end of this section, through your college grants department. Make sure that you don't reach out to them on Friday morning about this. There's a good chance that they have a lot going on, so make sure that you reach out earlier and let them know that you're going to be submitting this. How much is funding? This is an open budget, so as appropriate and as justified. So you have to make sure that your funds requested are in line with the guidelines, and also you want to justify them well on why you're including them. And the reviewers will then take that information into their consideration as they review these applications. And then, like I said before, the funding period begins at the hire date of the postdoc or the research fellow, and it lasts for 2 years.
Hey, Brett, I'm going to interject a little bit here too. And plus
Okay.
we've got somebody with a raised hand. There is a college limit. So at the Division of Research level, the colleges do a competition before they get to us, and then they're allowed to submit 2 from each college that then we consider at the Division of Research level. So each of the colleges will do a down select, if you will, before they end up coming to us.
Great. Yes. Thank you, Sheila, for outlining that. And that is noted in the full solicitation, which the solicitations are now available on the Our Initiative page on Clemson Division of Research website.
And then somebody had a question, I think.
Yes. Go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, I have a question about this CU fellowship. So this only pay for the postdoc salary, right? We cannot use money for like any consumable stuff, right? This is my first question. Second question is, it's a collaborative funding, which means I'm a new supervisor, so I need somebody like a senior professor as a collaborator for application. Is that right?
I'll speak to the first question. It's my understanding that yes, the only funding allowed request is to go towards the salary and the fringe of the proposed researcher. So if you request funds outside of those 2 strict categories, then it would be considered ineligible. And there is more specific guidance towards ineligible funding for this on the guidelines solicitation. Sheila, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to reply to that part also. So for example, if the person that's hired needs a new computer or other resources, hopefully your department or your school would be able to help chip in for those types of things, because if the Division of Research is awarding you or your team, $150,000 or 200, whatever it turns out to be, that's a pretty significant investment of resources that would be coming out of the Division of Research. So typically, at least in the 2 years that I've been here at Clemson, it seems like the units have been able to help with those other resources that we cannot fund for this particular opportunity. And then you also asked about the collaborative aspect. Typically, for CU fellows, the ones that are the most successful are kind of like I said before with the MRI. It's a fellow is going to be able to benefit more than just one individual. So if there is a group that is working on a particular topic or a particular area, and you can show that this is really a need that's going to help your group to advance, you're probably going to have better odds at being successful at this funding opportunity than if it's just for one individual. Because, our resources are very limited at the university level. And so we want to, as much as we can, try to ensure that it's going to have, the biggest impact, across the university. Do you have another question?
Yes. So when you talk about the competition between different departments, so I can collaborate people with different department, but that's is acceptable, right? Like
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you
Yep.
very much.
And you can collaborate across colleges too. We've had multiple CU Fellows applications come in that have faculty involved across different colleges.
It will be listed with you as a submitting PI, though. It will be listed with your college as the lead, though. So that would be one of the applications from your college to be considered in that college level competition preliminary.
We have another question.
Yes,
Brett?
go ahead.
And I remember in the orientation, there was a point made that it has to be collaborative and the two PIs have to be from different colleges. Was that point referring to the hiring of the postdocs under this program?
That's not for the CU Fellows necessarily. It's for one of the other initiatives that Brett will talk about.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So with that, we will continue on to our next program. CUCIA. So what is CIA? The Core Incentivized Access Program grants increased awareness of the available core facilities and leverage the services that they provide to increase research activities at Clemson University. This award will provide preliminary support for Clemson University researchers in the form of credits. And this term credits is used very encompassingly to include the costs of using the research facilities. But as I said before in the overview, this is not a monetary grant. This is a grant that is going to be used for access to the research facilities to enhance the likelihood of obtaining extramural funding for new projects. Access to multiple facilities is allowable, and requests should be made for the sole purpose of acquiring data for new grant applications. So there are 2 rounds associated with this competition. Round number 1 is due on Monday, November 21st, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. And then round number 2 is due Wednesday, April 12th, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. When does the funding period begin? At the award date, lasting for 1 year. And then what are the core facilities? The core facilities are the Clemson Light Imaging Facility, the Clemson Electron Microscope Facility, the Clemson University Microfabrication Facility, the Godley Snell Research Center, the Aquatic Animal Research Lab, and the High Powered Computing Center. All of these are detailed in the solicitation, which is found on our website, and their directors are also listed there, and some information about each facility is available.
Brett, we have another question.
Another question.
So there are different corporate program can help you to assess this different facility call, right? They provide like a $2,000 voucher for this different facility. So I still can apply the money from CUCIA, and even though I have the voucher from corporate, right?
I think they're 2 different things.
So are you saying that the COBRE provided funds for you to be able to use one of these facilities?
Yeah, that's only $2,000. Yeah, 2,500. Yeah.
And so is that 2,500 going to be sufficient to buy you the time that you need in the facility? If it's not going to be enough time, then you could apply through the CIA program to get additional time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you for that clarification, Sheila. All right, and with that, we will move on to Succeeds. So as I mentioned before, Succeeds is a 4-program encompassing our initiative. Clemson Faculty Succeeds is a competitive internal funding initiative that positions faculty to succeed at various stages of the research process, and you will see and you'll see this as we move through them. Succeeds provides funding across 4 programs to support leading edge research and scholarship that capitalize on the existing intellectual capital at Clemson University. So these 4 programs are the Project Initiation / Seed Funding, the Collaborate, number 3, Project Completion, and number 4, Fast Track. So we will go in depth with those now. Succeeds Program 1, what is it? Project Initiation and Seed Funding. Program 1 awards provide funding for the initiation of research activities. So this is a collection of preliminary research data, and the final deliverables of this must include a successfully submitted proposal to an external funding agency. When is the due date for this program? It's December 1st, 2022. That's a Thursday at 4:30, and your budget ceiling is $10,000 for this grant, for this our initiative, and the funding period begins February 1st, 2023 and ends January 31st, 2024.
So I'm going to make a quick comment about this one, Brett. I'm sorry, I'm like
Great.
taking over.
Oh no, this is great.
So I can tell you, when the review committee goes through these applications, one of the things that they ask is, particularly if it's new faculty that have started very recently, they're going to ask, why does this person need this? Do they not have startup funds that could pay to do whatever it is that they're proposing to do? So if you are applying to some of these programs, please make it clear whether you have startup funds. And for some of them, we actually ask you if there are specific startup funds that could be used for this. So you need to differentiate it, as to whether you have those funds or not, and whether they could be used for whatever it is that you're proposing. We get a good number of applications for this particular program, and we do tend to fund a good number of these applications. So it's a great opportunity, if you don't have other funds, to start, to get some pilot data that then you can help you go after larger external funding.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sheila. Appreciate that. So our next program as part of the Succeeds, our initiative is Program 2, which is Collaborate.
Real quick, we have another question.
Okay.
Hi,
Hey.
thank you all for this presentation, super informative. I'm a first-year tenure track assistant professor at the PRTM department, Parks, Recreation and Tourism. Thank you. I was very interested in the Succeeds for the max 10,000 in order to expand into greater grant applications. And I was wondering, I do have some startup funds, it's not a lot, but I was wondering what kind of what is communicated when it comes to the startup funds. For example, yes, I do have some startup funds. Is it automatically assumed, well, then you should be using that for the research that you're trying to do, or how is that explained or expanded on?
So I know that this is spoken to some in the guidelines, which can be found on our website, but as far as what is expected in being upfront about what you have in startup funds, Sheila, would you like to?
Sure. So I think you just have to say, if your startup funds were obligated for X, Y, and Z, and you're trying to do C, then just be clear about that. right? And, you know, I mean, sometimes we may even reach out to talk with a chair or director if we have questions, or we may reach back out to the particular faculty member that has applied to ask questions. But the more detail you can provide in the limited space that we give you to provide, of course, you know, I think that's going to make it clearer. So just be as
Absolutely.
detailed as you can about, you know, why you can't use if you have existing startup funds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Being upfront.
Yes, thank you. Really appreciate that. Clarifies my question.
Yes, thank you for asking. All right, now we'll move on to program 2, which is Collaborate. And as the name says, this is providing funding for multidisciplinary teams to pursue significant external research funding of at least $1.5 million in direct costs over 3 years or more, or center type proposals. So program 2 awards will allow teams to position themselves to submit highly competitive proposals. So there is a requirement for this, which is also detailed in the guidelines. And it says collaboration with multiple faculty with preliminary appointments is required from at least 3 different departments across 2 different colleges in the university. And secondary and joint appointments will not be considered in these this demonstration of collaboration. So that's very pertinent to this program. This program is due on January 18th, 2023, excuse me, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. And this is a larger award of up to $35,000 to go towards the submission of this of your proposal that will go towards the 1.5 million or greater application. And then the funding period for this begins on March 1st, 2023 and goes to February 29th, 2024, because 2024 is a leap year. Okay. Our next program is program 3. Program 3 is project completion. Project completion awards provide funding to support the completion of research and or scholarly activities with a targeted product. The final deliverable here can include a manuscript, a book, a piece of art, or other product that is appropriate to the faculty member's field of scholarship or proposal resubmitted to an external funding agency, whether it be federal, state, or a foundation. So this is also due on December 1st, 2022, as was program 1 at 4:30 p.m. This is smaller than program 1. This is up to $5,000, and the funding period begins on February 1st, 2023, and goes to January 31st, 2024. And then our final program that's part of the Succeeds Our initiative is program 4, Fast Track. Fast Track awards are a little bit different because they are accepted on a rolling basis. And as the description says, Fast Track awards provide funding for faculty responding to short notice external funding opportunities. A short notice external funding opportunity is one for which the submission deadline is 2 months of the original RFP solicitation publication date. Awardees will be notified of funding within 5 business days of proposal submission. And the final deliverable here is submission of the grant proposal. So as I said, they're accepted on a rolling basis, $5,000 max. And then the funding period, since it is a shorter date, timeline is 2 months from the award date. And
just a quick clarification here. We have had a few people reach out to us over the past year since we started this with an RFP that had a deadline within 2 months from when they saw it. But the problem is it was announced several months before they saw it. So it didn't technically qualify. So if there are particular agencies that, you know, that tend to put out RFPs with relatively short turnarounds, you need to sign up to get their email so that you are in the know when these things do come out. If like NIH and NSF tend to have pretty standard deadlines for many of their RFPs, the USDA, DOE, some of the others do too. But sometimes there are these very short ones that come out. So it has to be 2 months or less from when it's released to when it's due to apply for this funding opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheila. From here, we will move to our last two R funding initiatives. The first one is the sponsored travel grant, and I will note that both of these are on rolling deadlines, as I said in the beginning. So the sponsored travel grant is a grant of up to $1,000 for you as faculty investigators to visit agencies or foundation program officers to establish relationships and discuss new funding opportunities. These are accepted on a rolling basis, and the review timeline is we will try and get the reviews back to you as soon as possible to let you know if it's funded up to $1,000, and this funding period begins 6 months on or after July 1st, 2023. And then our second one that we'll talk about that's a rolling deadline basis is the external review initiative. External reviewers of proposals provide valuable feedback for you as investigators that can use to strengthen proposals prior to submission to funding agencies and increase potential funding access. The Division of Research facilitates and provides honoraria for the external peer review of grant proposals with the External Review Initiative. Faculty may receive external reviews of grant proposals on which they're principal investigators. So if you're a PI, PIs will suggest external reviewers, and the ORD staff will coordinate the receipt of written peer reviews. Submissions of materials for the external review initiatives must adhere to the timeline listed below, which you see right here. So this, though it is a rolling submission basis, it's based on the timeline of the proposal that you're trying to apply for. So it's due to ORD via InfoReady at least 12 weeks before the sponsor deadline, full draft proposal to ORD at least 8 weeks before the deadline, and then reviews delivered to you, the PI, at least 4 weeks before the sponsor deadline. So that completes the overview of our initiative suite. And from here, I just want to give you a few important pieces of information. A couple of tips for a successful proposal. Reading the solicitation. Oh, looks like we have another question.
Yep, we've got a question.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the previous slide.
Yes, sir.
The deadline for submitting the proposal for external review, is that a really, really hard deadline, or is there a way sometimes if you can work with the PI for some reasons? Because for example, I'm starting here, I've been here only, I don't know, a month or so, but a proposal, a big one, is due next month. Would you entertain the proposal which was written? I had it written last year, we had good reviews, just need to, tune it up a little bit. Would you entertain that kind of situation?
As much as possible, we try to adhere to the deadlines, because you have to give reviewers time to actually give you feedback. And if it's due in a month, for example, we generally give reviewers at least 3 weeks to get their reviews back to us. So, you can reach out to me individually and we can talk about it more. But in general, we try to adhere to these deadlines as much as possible. I'm not saying that we won't, budge a little bit, but as much as possible, we try to stick to them.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. All right, so just a few tips for a successful proposal. As I had stated before, reading the solicitation carefully and following the directions. That will help you as the PI so much. It's important to know the intricacies of the proposal, and working with your grants office and ORD, we will help you see that as well. But putting in that work to know what's required and submitting and those elements of what they're looking for from the sponsor will really benefit you as the PI, starting early as well. I know I might speak a little bit from personal experience in my undergraduate days. We all like to procrastinate a little bit. That's just part of being human, I think. But the earlier you can start on these, whether it's a limited submission or an opportunity proposal, the better off you will be, because it gives you better time to contact your team, your grants office, ORD, whoever it might be. Ask questions throughout this entire process. If you have a question, we're all here to answer your questions. And we'll seek to give you the best possible guidance from our positions. Seek feedback from your colleagues or staff. You know, we talk a lot at Clemson about Clemson family. In the research world, we want to be as supportive as possible as our faculty, and as part of being a good collaborative team too is working together as a team, and then also getting in touch with your grants office early. It's important to note that the MRI, the fellows, the CIA, and the CU Succeeds all have to be routed through InfoEd. So reaching out to them early on and letting them know that you're going to be submitting this grant before you submit it in InfoReady, it has to route through InfoEd, and routing is a process that your grants office will take you through. So on this next slide, I provided information for who your grants office contact is for your college. So these emails are also available on this website, research/sponsored programs, support centers. So that's a great tool here. So I'll leave this up in case you would like to copy your grants support office. And then looks like we just have a few minutes. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
So we've got another question in the chat. It's asking, how early is a good time to start?
So these dates are available today. So if you know that you are interested in pursuing an R initiative, I would say start thinking about it today. Reach out to your grants office today and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm interested in submitting this, because I can tell you as a former grants coordinator, that's really going to establish a good relationship, and letting you know, your grants office know ahead of time. That will also help them work with you on making sure you've included everything that's required in the guidelines. So I think the answer is you can never start early enough.
Reach out to us at any time if you have questions. We are always happy to talk with y'all. And if you need connections across the university, if you're new here and don't know a whole lot of people, we're also happy to help you make some of those connections too. But thanks everybody for coming. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much.